I'm going to be completely honest. I had no desire to watch this film, but given just how bad the reviews were, I kept it in mind, but was uncertain if I was going to do a rewrite or not, and I kinda wish I didn't just because I did not enjoy this film. The story was very textbook and there was nothing special about it. There was some decent story elements. I did like that Dolittle was already known for his ability and was accepted or at the very least tolerated by society, because let's face it, in a period setting, he would have been seen a nut and thrown in the asylum. So I do appreciate that the writers chose not to go down that route. Another thing that I really liked but didn't get the necessary attention was him trying to find closure after the death of his wife. With that said, I had such issues with how the writers chose to portray Dolittle's ability. Initially, it was a gift that only he was capable of, but they chose for it to be more of a skill that can be acquired and developed through observation. I get that this is a kids film and that this is their way of saying you can do this too, but it just didn't work. Especially since the child character with no instruction from Dolittle was able to figure out the secret language of the animals, which had me asking, why couldn't he do this before? I'm aware that there was some issues during the production which led to changes and reshoots, but since I don't know the full story, I won't speculate. Let's just get started. How would one describe the peculiar man known as Dr. Dolittle? Those who had passed by him on the street would use the term shy, odd, or just plain crazy. But for those who took the time to get to know him, would refer him as a man with a remarkable gift. He was gifted with the ability to communicate with those outside his species, but with his own species, he needed help. But luckily for him, he met someone. Dolittle and his wife Lily spent their days helping all those that crossed paths with them. But their adventures came to an end when Lily fell ill. Dolittle did all he could with the help of all he spoke to. Her illness still remained a mystery, but there was hope for a cure. But just as everything had been arranged, Lily could not hold on any longer. This devastated Dolittle, so much so that he secluded himself within his sanctuary with only the company of his animal companions to console him. After years of seclusion, an unexpected visitor comes to the manor. A young woman named Alma makes her way through the grounds of the manor. Her escort Chip gets caught in one of the nets. Alma makes her way to the front door and knocks. She hears commotion inside, and to her surprise, the door is unlocked. The house is in complete chaos, and even though Alma is taken back by this, she presses on with her mission to find Dr. Dolittle. She finds a man hiding in a corner and with some back and forth confirms that he is Dr. Dolittle. Alma is somewhat in disbelief that this is the infamous Dolittle, but regardless, she will not fail her mission. Dr. Dolittle, I've come here on grave urgency. Who's that chap caught in my net? That's Chip, he'll be fine. I was sent here by the Queen and Lady Rose. Oh, I remember them. Lovely woman, nosy child. It's been a few years. She's not a child anymore and the Queen is ill. Happens to the best of us. It's why I'm here. They've called on you. What in heaven's for? Because of your gift. You have access to knowledge that the rest of us can only dream of. Yes, well, knowledge isn't everything, and it never guarantees. I see. My condolences. I too have lost someone dear to me. I'm sorry to hear that. Anyways, it has been nice meeting you, and I presume you remember where the door is. Dr. Dolittle, you do realize that if you reject this summons, you could be thrown in jail. They'll first have to get past my ferocious guards. Sure. I don't know if you're aware of this, but if the Queen perishes, your home will be taken away from you. You're bluffing. The deed said for life. The Queen's life. If I knew where my deed was, I would confirm it, but since I don't know where it is at the moment, I suppose it wouldn't hurt to get out of the house for a bit. Not looking like that, you don't. Dolittle cleans himself up with the animal's assistance. Alma isn't completely satisfied, but it'll have to do. I want to make this clear. Alma is not a love interest. I replaced the kid character with Alma just because I did not like him. From the moment he was shown on screen, I knew where this was going and I did not like a single moment of it. As for changing Lily's demise, the events of the film didn't feel as personal as I wanted it to be. With the changes I made, I hope to emphasize the emotional weight that is lingering within Dolittle and hopefully make it even more satisfying when he finally gets that closure. When arriving at the palace, Alma instructs Dolittle to wait in the courtyard as she announces him. As he and his companions wait, they draw the attention of those around them to the point that the animals become uneasy. Dolittle tries to calm them down, but to the growing crowd, the animals are coming off ferocious. One misunderstanding leads to another, and the animals run off into the palace. A chase ensues, and it finally comes to an end when they all make their way into the Queen's chambers. After being informed by Alma, Lady Rose instructs all to leave except for Dolittle. She asks him to do what he can. Jip gets to work and becomes quiet when he catches a familiar scent. It takes some coaxing, but he finally tells Dolittle that it's the same as what Lily had. Unable to cope with what he's just heard, Dolittle gives his condolences and leaves to the shock of everyone. When a loved one passes away, it can be very traumatizing, regardless of how they pass. Dolittle, in both versions, feels guilt. He feels responsible for his wife's death, and because he never properly moved past that, when the illness that took his wife reemerges, it triggers him, showing just how broken he is and how hard it's going to be to overcome that trauma. Also, the bit of the conspiring to kill or dethrone the queen has been done, so how about we just stop beating that poor horse and just do something a little different? Amma makes her way back to Dolittle's manor and poor Chip finds himself in the net again. Before reaching the door, it's opened by Chi-Chi. She may not be able to communicate with him the way Dolittle can, but it's clear what they're asking for. They take her to Dolittle, who's sitting in his chair, lost. She takes a seat across from him and does what she can. Your furry companions seem very concerned about you. They needn't worry. They know that I'll always take care of them. May I ask what you plan on doing about the house? We have a ship. That was our home for several years, and it can be again. After everything the Queen's given you, you're just gonna turn your back on her? I can't help her. I did everything I could, and it wasn't enough. I too did everything I could as well, and it wasn't enough, and just like you, I gave up. And I think that's why it still hurts. I can't guarantee a cure. Trying will be enough for now. After getting Chip out of the net, Amma sends him to inform Lady Rose that she will be traveling with Dolittle to find a cure. At the harbor, Dolittle takes a moment before boarding his ship since he hasn't been on it since Lily's death. As they prepare to sail, Amma is taken back to find that Dolittle can't sail. Lily was the sailor and this was her ship, but he assures her that Polly sailed with Lily long before they ever met and that she knows what to do. The misfit crew sets sail as Dolittle explains the destination of their voyage. If the Queen has what I believe she does, I'm afraid there's not much I can do. However, every culture has its own wives' tales about magical cures. I thought it to be a bunch of nonsense myself until Lily got sick. When I started asking around, I learned that even separate species have their own tales of remarkable cures, and this one in particular kept coming up, called the Dragon's Bloom. There's not much written about it, but what little there is all says the same thing. It cures all that ails. Do you know where to find it? Not without the journal. What journal? Lily's journal. Lily was an adventurer that loved discovering new things about the world that she could share with others. She kept a record of everything in her journal, whether it was true or myth, but she accidentally left her journal behind from where she previously lived, and she couldn't remember what she wrote about the Dragon's Bloom, so we're going to go retrieve it. This just crossed my mind as I was writing this. Whose ship was Lily on when she died at sea? In the beginning of the film, it showed the couple sailing around the world, but Lily dies out at sea, and then we see Dolittle having a ship. This is so confusing. I would think that Lily would have been sailing on the ship that Dolittle is sailing on, which has me wondering, how did they get two ships? Also, the fact that Dolittle has a ship takes away the reason for him helping the Queen in the first place, because the ship is his scapegoat if the house is taken away, because it's already been confirmed that he's traveled around the world living on that ship. All this does is confirm that I made the right choice when changing the circumstances of Lily's death. Amma feels that Dolittle is keeping something from her but chooses not to press it. When they arrive in Monteverli, Dolittle becomes skittish and constantly looking over his shoulder. Finally, Amma confronts him and he tells her that the ruler and him are not on good terms. She spots a wanted poster and immediately questions her life choices. Amma does her best with what she has and disguises Dolittle as a woman. With the help of the local animals, the two get past the guards and into the palace. They spot a cat chasing a mouse and Dolittle saves the mouse. It shows Dolittle a secret passage into the treasure vault. Amma waits outside as Dolittle does his best not to wake the slumbering lions in the chamber, but the cat that was chasing the mouse appears and wakes the lions. They spot Dolittle and begin to roar, alerting their king. He's captured and thrown into a pit. Dolittle hears a familiar voice and knows it's Barry, the patient he regrettably left behind. As the two get reacquainted, the mouse goes and finds Amma, who has evaded capture. She follows the mouse and finds Dolittle. She throws a rope down, but Dolittle insists that they release Barry too. Amma is not too keen on the idea, but Dolittle refuses to leave an animal in need for a second time. When they finally get Barry out, they make their way back to the vault as Barry assures them that the lions will listen to him. Sure enough they do, and they get the journal. As they leave, they get spotted and a chase ensues. Barry lets out a roar and Polly recognizes it. The animals on the ship makes their way to land to assist Dolittle. Each member of the misfit crew does their best to keep the journal out of the hands of the guards. But due to the struggle, the pages in the journal fall out and blown out into sea. The crew feels defeated and are taken back to the palace. Awaiting their fate, Rasuli appears. Why the hell are you here, John? For Lily. You better have a better excuse than that. It's no excuse. I'm here because I couldn't save her. I'm being given a second chance to do for someone that I couldn't do for her. Lily would never forgive me if I stood by and did nothing. I never liked you. Really? I never knew. However, she would never forgive me either if I interfered. It doesn't matter now. The journal's gone. Now I really don't like you. You really think that I'd leave the journal where it was after your first attempt at stealing it? Rasuli releases them and gives Dolittle the journal, but it's only temporary. I honestly did not like this segment of the film and wasn't sure if I wanted to keep it in, but decided I was going to make it work. The reason I didn't like this was because of the tiger. To me, Dolittle is a man that loves animals and does his best to help them regardless of how he's seen and the consequences that befalls him. Barry's character came off troubled psychologically, and what makes it worse is that he accuses Dolittle of abandoning him and Dolittle doesn't deny it. This is extremely detrimental to his character because we're made to believe that the reason he's not willing to help the queen is because he's still traumatized over the death of his wife, but this confirms that he was self-centered before her death. I don't go into depth, but I do change the encounter between Dolittle and Barry to make it more palatable. It takes some deciphering, but they finally think they've grasped the direction they need to take. They set sail, but a storm appears out of nowhere. Polly does her best to keep them on course. After several days, the storm finally passes. They rest on an island that they come across, and after exploring, realize that it's one of the islands from the journal, confirming that they're on the right course. But don't have time to celebrate as it's discovered that they're not alone. They're shocked to find a Gigantopithecus still alive. Dolittle and Chi-Chi tries to communicate with it, but the language barrier is too great. All they can do is run. Yoshi and Barry hold it off, but it's not enough. Chi-Chi musters up its courage and fights with them. Dolittle and Alma reach the beach and starts rowing. Polly alerts the others that they're safe and that they can stop fighting and run. As they start swimming out to sea, Chi-Chi is grabbed, but Barry quickly springs into action. The Gigantopithecus lets go of Chi-Chi and focuses on Barry. Yoshi tries to help, but Barry roars at them to leave while they can. The fight ends and the crew sets sail with one less crew member. When watching this film, I was not expecting a dragon to show up at the end, even though they were looking for a tree with magical fruit. A lot of times before reaching that big magical climax, there is usually some kind of pre-exposure of magical element to help suspend the belief, but we didn't get that with this film. This addition was my way of pre-exposing the audience to that mystical element before the finale. With that said, I did not expect for it to turn out as dark as it did, but The Neverending Story is a kid's film and that got dark. The mood has shifted as it gets even worse as Alma has fallen ill. Dolittle is feeling overwhelmed, but with the help of the others, stays strong. They finally reach their destination. Alma stays on the ship as the others look for the dragon's bloom. They mindlessly wander through the island and the legend reveals itself to them. They are all bewildered to be standing before a dragon. To Dolittle's surprise, he can understand it, but to a degree. They explain the reasoning for them coming, but the dragon is not amused and demands their leave. Dolittle stands his ground and insists. The dragon hisses and gives them one last chance to leave. Dolittle refuses and the dragon sways his head, hitting the stone walls, causing rocks to fall. They do their best to dodge the rocks, but Dolittle notices that the dragon isn't moving. Polly flies up and discovers that the dragon is pinned down. Dolittle beckons the dragon not to eat them as they try to help. The dragon simply lays his head down and lets them do as they wish. It takes some time, but he thinks he has it. They get to work building a harness for the dragon's head and tie the other end to the boulders. When it's finished, the dragon pulls his head forwards and aggressively sways it when frustrated, but for the first time in years, the boulders move. The weight shifts and the dragon ferociously stands. Finally, after hundreds of years of being trapped, the dragon is free. Dolittle barely manages to keep himself composed as it's discovered just how much larger the dragon is. The dragon is not an ungrateful creature and gives Dolittle what he came for. The scales on his chest reveals the plumage underneath, the dragon's bloom. Tears fall as it's finally completed. Back on the ship, Dolittle gets to work making a remedy. Only a few moments after giving it to Alma, she feels better than she's ever felt. With not a moment to lose, they return to the palace and give the queen the remedy. During the commotion of the queen's miraculous recovery, Dolittle leaves without a word. Alma once again visits the manor, but no Chip this time. The animals are ecstatic to see her as she hands Dolittle a copy of the manor's deed and reveals that she lied. Dolittle isn't too thrilled to hear that, but thanks her nonetheless. Alma notices that the house is slightly cleaner and Dolittle reveals that he's planning to open up shop once the house is in order. However, the animal's version of clean is different than his. Needing all the help he can get, Alma stays. The magical tree bit has been done so many times that I didn't think it would hurt to deviate from that concept and just do something different. I had originally thought to make the cure a flower just because the fruit wasn't doing it for me. But then Dragonheart popped into my head out of nowhere and I thought, why the hell not? And honestly, I really liked the concept and thought it was unique compared to what we normally see in films, and I wanted to utilize the dragon as well. These are mythical creatures that are often portrayed and worshipped as gods, so why the are they used as guard dogs half the time? The reason I sidelined Alma is because this is Dolittle's journey for closure, so he can finally move on with his life the way his wife would have wanted him to, and I just felt that it would have hit differently if Alma had been there assisting. Originally, I didn't plan to change the ending, but when I got close to finishing my rewrite, I realized that the film's ending portrayed the ending of Dolittle's journey differently than what I wanted. I'm not saying that the film's ending was bad, it was wholesome and ended things neatly by showing that Dolittle has already moved on with his clinic reopened, but I wanted to show Dolittle taking his first steps in moving forwards with him cleaning up and preparing to open the clinic again. As for the lie that Alma told, it was just a mere incentive to kickstart the event similar to Samurai Champloo. When it came to this rewrite, I just wanted to do something quick, easy, and not so time-consuming because the He-Man video really burned me out. The editing just destroyed me, and I just wanted to do something simple, and this was it. I did not enjoy watching this film, and I was not enjoying rewriting it either. I knew this was going to be a short video and thought, what the hell, let's have fun with this rewrite. I don't really gain or lose anything when doing these videos, I just want to share my thoughts. And figured since this film doesn't have much of a following, if any, I'd be safe to branch out. Normally, I just alter portions of a scene and add a new one here and there to better clarify the changes that I'm making. And while I do stick close to the original structure of the story, I just wanted to do something different. Thanks for watching and like and subscribe.